Today we are making vegan birria, and I gotta say, I know I'm late to the party, but holy moly, this is probably my new favorite meal. And in case you don't know, birria is a stewed meat originating from Jalisco, Mexico, and it's typically made with goat, lamb, or beef, but today we'll be using soy curls instead. And the QuesaTacos are what made everybody lose their minds a while back, and I can see why. They are pretty freaking amazing. It's essentially a dipped mini quesadilla that you then dip again in some delicious consomme. But birria can be enjoyed in a bevy of ways, and since this recipe makes a ton, you should have plenty of leftovers that you can use for anything from a grilled cheese or a torta, maybe some ramen, or you can make a traditional plate with rice and beans. So let's get to making the birria, and we're going to start with the dried chilies. You can really mix these up however you like, but I'm going to be using 6 guajillo chilies, 3 pasilla chilies, and then 3 chile de árbol. And all we need to do now is chop off the stem and get rid of most of the seeds. You don't need to worry about getting every single little seed, but just go ahead and do your best to get as much out as possible. And then to a cold, dry pan, let's add the chilies, and we're just going to bring that up to a medium heat and toast them for a few minutes. Keep an eye on them, make sure they don't get burned. A little charring is fine, but we definitely don't want them to get too scorched. If you start to feel like you're going to sneeze, that's a good hint that it's time to add some water to the pan. And then we're just going to cover the chilies in water and bring that up to a boil. And once it does start boiling, kill the heat and then cover the pan. And we're going to let those chilies steep in, soften while we get our spices together. To another cold, dry pan, let's add 1 stick of cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of coriander seeds, 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds, and then 1 tablespoon of black peppercorns, about 4 bay leaves, and then we'll move those around and we're just gonna toast these for a bit. And you don't have to use full seeds, and in fact I didn't have whole cloves and allspice and had to use the pre-ground stuff. But if you do have these at your disposal, then toasting them is nice and will make things a little tastier. And just like with the chilies, careful not to burn these. Once they start to get aromatic and the cumin seeds might take on a little bit of color, then it's time to remove them from the heat. And let's add them to a spice grinder like so. And like I said, I'll be adding about half a teaspoon of ground allspice and half a teaspoon of ground cloves, 1 tablespoon of Mexican oregano, and then go ahead and grind that up to a fine dust. And there you go. It should look something like that. And now let's get our soy curls rehydrated. And here they are, soy curls, one of my favorites. I'll leave a link in the description for more info. I've also seen people make this with jackfruit and oyster mushrooms as well. In fact, the mushroom, when you shred it like so, really mimics the pulled meat that is standard with birria. So the choice is yours, but I'm choosing soy curls, so we'll cover them in water for about 10 minutes. And then after that, we're gonna squeeze out all of the liquid that we can. And some people ask if they can just use some of the broth to rehydrate them, and if you want to, you totally can, but personally, I found that the soy curls don't really retain a ton of that flavor, and on top of that, the broth that gets squeezed out has kind of a funky aftertaste from the soy curls. So that's just my preference on that, but you do what you like. Another thing that I like about soy curls is their irregular shape, which mimics meat quite well. But sometimes they're a little bit big, so if you want, you can actually pull them apart like I'm doing here and shred them into even smaller bits. You could also just go ahead and chop them up. Really do whatever you like, whatever is gonna make your birria experience the best. So let the soy curls chill, and next we'll get a whole onion and just roughly chop it like so. We're gonna blend it up, so don't really worry about cutting it all nice and pretty. We'll also get an entire head of garlic and get all the skin off of it. And now get a pan up to medium heat, add some oil, and we're gonna saute our onions for about 6 to 7 minutes or until they soften and turn translucent. And then next, let's throw in all of that garlic and toast that for a minute or so. And after that, we're gonna add in about 8 to 10 of these canned tomatoes. And fresh Roma tomatoes are often used, but they aren't in season. And plus, I just love these tomatoes. Maybe don't squeeze them like this. I thought it would look cool, but it really just made a big mess for no reason and also didn't look cool at all. So add in your tomatoes along with about a 1/4 cup of the sauce that they came in. Crush up the tomatoes with a wooden spoon or tongs like I am. And then next we're gonna add in the spices that we ground up earlier. And if I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I would add the spices before the tomatoes. But you know what? This was so dang good, it didn't matter. And we'll stir that around for a bit. I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of chopped chipotle in adobo, as I do. And we're just gonna mix that all up and simmer it for about 5 minutes. And then next up is the fun part. We're gonna now add our softened chilies to a blender along with about 1 cup of the steeping water. And then we'll add in the tomato, onion, and garlic mixture. And we're just gonna blend that up in a high-speed blender until it's blended. And then you can strain this mixture to get it even smoother, but I decided against it since I like it a little thicker. But then to a large Dutch oven, we're gonna add in that mixture along with 6 cups of water, 2 tablespoons worth of this better than bouillon beefless broth, but you can also use veggie broth if you can't find this stuff. Then we'll also do a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, make sure it's vegan, 3 tablespoons of mushroom seasoning, 2 tablespoons of black vinegar, about 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses, 2 teaspoons of Marmite, which is awfully sticky, and I'm sure there's a better way to get it in the pot than this, but hey, I was improvising. And then next we'll add in the juice of 1 to 2 limes. Now let's add in our soy curls, stir those around, and now all we gotta do is bring that up to a simmer, and we're just gonna let this simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes to really infuse all the flavors and to get the soy curls to absorb all of that delicious consomme we just made. And then next, I'm gonna separate our vegan beef from the consomme. And when I first did this during my test, I used a slotted spoon and it took a while, so I thought I'll be cool and use a strainer this time. But that wasn't very cool. As you can see here, I made a bit of a mess. So either use a much bigger strainer and bowl or just take it easy and scoop it out with a slotted spoon. And now, finally, our birria is done and we can make some QuesaTacos. And a quick note, you're gonna wanna get some sturdy tortillas. I don't recommend using something like these as they have a tendency to rip and fall apart after you dip them. Try to use something like these freshly made tortillas that I got from my local Mexican market. As long as they aren't too delicate, they should work. So go ahead and dip your tortilla in the consomme and completely coat it, and then add that to a hot pan or a griddle. And then next we're going to add in some vegan mozzarella, since I've never seen vegan Oaxacan cheese, but mozzarella is a common substitute. And next we'll add a decent amount of our birria meat, fold it like a quesadilla, and then simply grill it until each side is nice and brown and slightly crispy. And don't worry about any meat or cheese that's touching the pan or griddle. That's actually good. It'll get nice and caramelized. You can even grill the meat directly on the pan before adding if you want to brown it a bit. Either way, cook up as many QuesaTacos as you'd like, and now it's time to dip them in some of that consomme. And like I said at the beginning, these are so dang good, just out of this world delicious. I mean, they're smoky, a little spicy, and seriously, just ridiculously delicious. I literally have been eating them all week and not even close to getting sick of them. But like I said, this does make quite a bit, so go ahead and store some for later and eat it throughout the week, and feel free to make whatever you like. I also made a torta, and I saw somebody do this on the TikTok or the Instagram, I can't remember where, but they threw down some cheese directly on the griddle, and then they took some torta rolls, put them right on top. The cheese will melt and get crispy. This stuff didn't really brown, but it did get nice and crispy on the outside, while the stuff underneath was all melted and amazing. So top that up with some of the birria, some cilantro and onions, and that is one honkin' good torta. Of course, we gotta dip this in the consomme, and yeah, I mean, I'm just in awe of how freaking scrumptious this was. We can also make some birria ramen. I'm gonna use this stuff that I'm also late to the party. And yes, it's accidentally plant-based, even though it's chicken flavored, so don't worry. But we'll cook up some of the ramen as we do, add in some of the consomme, and then some of the birria, and there you go, birria ramen. And since I was full from eating the grilled cheese I'm about to show you, I went ahead and stored the ramen for later. But yeah, a birria grilled cheese as well. I mean, it's exactly what you think. Toast some bread in some butter, add some cheese and some of your birria, grill that to grilled cheese perfection, and then yeah, we're gonna dip that. And oh my, I'm speechless. I'm telling you, this was like the best breakfast I had in ages. Yes, I ate this for breakfast. And you can also make a more traditional plate with rice and beans, and this is a solid, super duper great way to eat this as well. You honestly can't go wrong. I'd love to try it in just about everything. I want to do mac and cheese with it next, but what about you? Let me know in the comments how you would eat this, and if you do make it, let me know how it goes. You can also make some carne asada with soy curls. I got a video right here, so give that a click, and I'll see ya next time.